Hello everyone. Today we will explore the history of coffee and discover how it is spread across the world. More interesting fact about it.
The story of coffee begins in Ethiopia around the 9th century. According to legend, a goat herder named Kaldi discovered coffee. He noticed his goats became very energetic after eating red berries from a certain tree. Curious, he tried them and felt energized too. Coffee cultivation and trade started in Yemen. By the 15th century, coffee was being grown in the district of Mocha, which later became famous for coffee trade. Coffee houses called Kahvekhane became popular across cities like Mecca, Cairo, and Istanbul. Coffee reached Europe in the 17th century. At first, some people were suspicious of it and called it the bitter invention of Satan. Coffee comes to Europe. However, Pope Clement VIII reportedly tasted coffee and approved it, which helped it spread quickly across Europe. Coffee houses became centers for discussion, business, and social life.
Coffee originates from the highlands of East Africa, more specifically from present-day Kaffa province in Ethiopia. Here grows a species of coffee plant which was domesticated in ancient times by local populations. Its fruit, called the coffee cherry, contains two beans, which, once roasted and ground, are infused in boiling water to be consumed. The beverage, known as buna, follows trade routes, and around the beginning of the second millennium, crosses the Red Sea to reach the port of Mocha. In Arabic, the new beverage is called kahwa, a word that then refers to wine, but which might also be linked to Kaffa's origins. The drink is initially consumed mainly in Sufi monasteries, where it is associated with religious practices. The cultivation of coffee plants then develops in the highlands of Yemen, and gradually the beverage becomes more and more appreciated and consumed by the Yemeni people. It then follows pilgrimage routes to reach Mecca, where it becomes very popular and spreads throughout the Muslim world, particularly in the Mamluk Sultanate. The first establishments dedicated to its consumption open everywhere and become places of gathering, exchange, and games. However, some conservative imams in Mecca view the stimulating effects of this new beverage with suspicion and take steps to ban its consumption. In 1517, the Ottoman Empire conquers the region, and the Turks, who call the drink kahve, lift the bans. Coffee quickly becomes very popular in Constantinople. Since the city is connected to the main trade routes of the Mediterranean, Venetian merchants discover what they call cafe and begin introducing it in Europe. However, the beverage remains expensive as Mocha carefully protects its monopoly by prohibiting the sale of plants or cherries in order to prevent the cultivation of coffee plants elsewhere in the world. Despite strict controls, an Indian pilgrim named Baba Budan manages to smuggle 7 coffee cherries into India and begins a modest cultivation. Meanwhile, the Dutch, followed by the English, establish themselves in the Indian Ocean and begin direct trade with Mocha, which allows them to import coffee to Europe without having to use the traditional Egyptian route. The first establishments dedicated to the consumption of coffee open all over Europe, but the beverage remains rare and expensive and is thus mainly reserved for the elite. The Dutch East India Company then aims to dominate this lucrative market by starting its own production. The company obtains, probably clandestinely, some coffee cherries from Yemen and imports the plant to Java, where the altitude and climate are ideal to cultivate coffee. In 1706, the colony sends a coffee plant to Amsterdam, which would become the ancestor of most coffee plants today. This plant is kept in heated greenhouses in the city for study. The coffee plant, being self-pollinating, reproduces on its own. Its seeds produce new plants that are cultivated in the city. In 1713, during the Treaty of Utrecht that marks the end of the War of Spanish Succession, the mayor of Amsterdam offers several coffee plants to King Louis XIV of France. These are kept in royal greenhouses, but Louis XIV wants even more in order to establish French coffee production. He commissions an expedition to acquire coffee plants from Yemen and to cultivate them on Bourbon Island. At the same time, Javanese coffee production becomes significant enough to supply Europe and to compete with mocha coffee. However, the Dutch do not stop there and establish new plantations in Ceylon, Sumatra, and Suriname with plants sent from Amsterdam. In 1721, a French captain receives 2 coffee plants from the royal greenhouses and transports them to Martinique to begin coffee production there, which then quickly spreads throughout the French Antilles. In French Guiana, coffee production also gets underway after coffee plants are obtained clandestinely from Suriname. The Portuguese king, interested in this market, sends an ambassador to French Guiana officially to discuss the border between the 2 colonies, but secretly to obtain coffee cherries. The ambassador succeeds by seducing the governor's wife and returns to Brazil to begin production. As coffee cultivation becomes more widespread, it becomes easier for new powers to obtain coffee plants or cherries. The British start production in Jamaica, and the Spanish do so in the Philippines. In the Americas, agricultural production is heavily supported by the triangular trade, which provides European colonies with large numbers of African slaves. Global coffee production explodes, prices drop, and the beverage becomes more popular in Europe and North America. After the Boston Tea Party of 1773, revolutionaries turn away from tea, which is now seen as unpatriotic, and favor coffee instead. Thanks to its bourbon coffee and Antilles coffee, France becomes the largest producer in the world. Its wealthy colony of Saint-Domingue, inhabited by 500,000 slaves, produces half of the world's coffee, which even finds its way to markets in Cairo and Amsterdam. In 1789, the French Revolution takes place, and the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen is proclaimed, inspiring slaves and freedmen on the island to revolt against the wealthy landowners. In 1804, Haiti gains independence, and many French settlers flee the island to cultivate coffee in Jamaica and Cuba. In 1822, Brazil gains independence and focuses on coffee to help develop its economy. The new country massively imports African slaves despite the European ban on the slave trade. In just a few decades, Brazil becomes the largest coffee producer in the world, a status it still holds today. At this point, the entirety of global coffee production comes from a single Ethiopian coffee plant species called Coffea arabica. Due to its limited genetic diversity, the plant is poorly resistant to disease, and in the 1870s, coffee rust devastates coffee production in Ceylon. Within 20 years, the disease spreads to many regions worldwide, ravaging crops, particularly in Asia. Only plants grown above 1,400 meters in altitude are able to resist the rust. As a result, Europeans search for new high-altitude terrains suitable for coffee cultivation. Britain imports new plants to its new colonies near Abyssinia, where Arabica returns to its origins after a centuries-long intercontinental journey. Not far from there, a new coffee plant species is discovered. It grows naturally in tropical areas, is more resistant to disease, has better yields, and produces a more bitter coffee with twice the caffeine content of Arabica. This new coffee is called Robusta and is gradually cultivated worldwide. By the early 20th century, coffee production exploded explodes worldwide, which causes its price to drop. In 1929, the Wall Street stock market crash triggers a severe global economic crisis. Brazil is not spared and tries to maintain high coffee prices by burning its stocks. Meanwhile, the Swiss company Nestle is tasked with finding a new method to preserve and consume coffee to boost sales. In 1938, its research succeeds, and the company creates a coffee powder that only needs to be mixed with hot water for consumption. During World War II, this instant coffee accompanies many soldiers on the front lines. But on the other side, war disrupts trade between Europe and Latin America. Fearing economic collapse, the United States convinces coffee-producing countries to limit their exports to stabilize prices. The plan works, and in 1962 it is renewed, this time with coffee producers worldwide. The International Coffee Organization is created to establish a common policy and regulate coffee prices through quotas. However, in 1989, Brazil refuses to reduce its quotas and the agreement collapses. Producing countries can once again sell their coffee without limits, flooding the market. The situation worsens towards the late 1990s when Vietnam quickly becomes the second largest coffee producer in the world, cultivating almost exclusively Robusta. The global supply is so abundant that many small producers are forced to sell their coffee at a loss. Fair trade initiatives then emerge, aiming to set minimum purchase prices to ensure a decent income for small producers. Today, around 10 million tons of coffee are produced annually worldwide, mainly between the two tropics. Coffee is then mostly exported to the northern hemisphere, where more than 2 billion cups are consumed daily, particularly in Europe, which has the highest per capita consumption in the world.